My name is Justin. I'm bringing back the show. One day I will upload, when I'll let you know. Come sit next to me, bring a cannoli. It's an offering for our Lord Cuomo. Let me make it clear, I won't disappear. I'll always be here lurking in the shadows. The bruises all one whole month late, but I'm here to end this long wait. Comment said, hey man, he jumped the shark, but I've been jumping since the start. The podcast in current year. The podcast in current year. The podcast in current year. The podcast in current year.
Welcome back, motherfunkers. It's Really Awesome Dude indexing thoughts until the recording ends. Episode 2, 1, I don't really know where we're at. It's the big one, the one everyone's been waiting for. Jungle Inferno and Weezer's Pacific Daydream. If I'm being honest, I've held back on making a podcast of this just because they're such monumental things and they both severely disappointed me, but in their own individual ways. And I could not really find a way to articulate it until rather recently. Even then, I think I'll struggle to, but let's go right into it with Jungle Inferno, TF2. I know you might have come here for Weezer, but Weezer can wait. They've waited 1 month, they can wait another 20 minutes. So Jungle Inferno, I'm going to just do a quick fire rundown of all the days, because I'm sure you've heard of it at this point. Day 1, unique SFM, 6 fun pubbing maps. The SFM, I would have liked it to be bigger, but I didn't wait this long just to get a good SFM. I waited for an update. The fact that we even got an SFM was icing on the cake. So whatever. 6 fun pubbing maps. Honestly, these maps don't do anything for me. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're good. You have to keep in mind, I don't pub very much to begin with these days, but I don't think they hurt anybody. Now, if you ask certain people, they'll say, I really dislike Brazil. I really dislike Mercenary Park. But ultimately, I think they're not much different from what is in current rotation of the game's pub maps, so whatever. Day 2, beyond improved contract system. I don't think anybody would argue that this is not better than the previous contract system. It's fairly easy to navigate. It's a pretty intuitive system when you think about it. The ability to give new players weapons through these contracts. It could potentially be a very big solution in the future. The fact that not every player can get weapons, this is a very good solution to that. Also, more war paints on day 2. I know I never mentioned it during the Death of an Art Style video, but war paints, now they should be called whatever, skins. War paints are also, in my opinion, not good for... they don't look good in the game, but I think they're beneficial to the game in the long term. That's something I'll go into on another episode, but I think there's a lot of potential with war paints to sustain player interaction in the game. You can potentially get one for teams and stuff. I'm okay with the concept of war paints. What I'm not okay with is the fact that wares still exist. You know, the different tiers of war paints, one that look like total ass and ones that look acceptable. It's a more artificial rarity, really. It's just a way to make the good looking ones look better by comparison. I think they should be scrapping war paints or wares at this point. I'm fine with keeping the war paints. There aren't really any that interest me, except for maybe the pizza one, if only because a long time ago I said I wanted a cheese loose cannon, and this is the closest I'm ever gonna get. Finally, on day 2 is more cosmetics, whatever, Yeti costume, more fucking jungle cosmetics. Art style's a joke, man. My eyes are a lie. Honestly, I don't know what I'm expecting anymore. People want to wear these things, that's fine. I don't see how they fit with anything else in the game. You'd figure they would at least mostly just pick items that mesh well with other things, but whatever. That's all of day 3, except for one last thing, which is probably one of the biggest parts of the updates, the new Pyro changes. And I got one complaint. Why is Pyro now easier to kill with? You can look up clips of people spinning around as Pyro and killing 8 heavies at equal times despite only hitting them for a split second each time they spin around. Basically, they fixed a lot about Pyro. They fixed Air Blast. They greatly improved it. They fixed a lot of how Afterburn works. Most everything about Pyro is better. But for some reason, the way they fucked with the damage dealt, it compounds really quickly, even if you don't hit them directly. Like, they fixed the hitboxes for flames, and honestly, I don't even know how they fucked this up. But whatever they did, it's way too easy to kill as Pyro now. Also, what's with the new Pyro flames? I just recently made a video talking about how clear and easy to read TF2 is. This update comes out and just fucks with that. Pyro already, yes, was visually cluttery on the screen, but you could still tell what was happening. Really, my phone's going off now. Everyone's freaking out about the Pyro update, man. Whenever a Pyro sprays his flames now, it's completely opaque. You can't see through the flames. There's really no cracks to see through. Before, it was at least moderately readable. Now, if a Pyro's coming at you in a straight line, you can't really even tell where his body is. I'm curious to see if they'll change anything with that. I think the actual way the fire works now is much more visually pleasing because it's in a straight line and it's what you see is what you get essentially, but I still think they need to make it a little better fitting for the environment that it'll be seen in, at least.
Hey guys, it's me, Craft Funk. Justin forgot to mention it here, but he talks about the Pyro weapons after all of the days instead of here. Okay, I hope this clears up any confusion. EIP Dippy Bepson and my depression WRYYYYYY.
Actually, one last thing on day 3, the heavy banana, second banana. I personally didn't expect heavy to get anything for this update, so this was a pleasant surprise to me. That said, it's really not anything that interesting. If you want to frick around in pubs, then yeah, go for it. It'll be fun to just run around with a banana because it'll be quickly recharging and you won't have to worry about packs or medics quite as much. But other than that, it's not really going to come in handy that much. It's a meme weapon. And now the big one, day 4. It's just patch notes. If you've read the first 3 updates, the 3 days, then congrats. You know everything that's in the update. This is what's kind of weird to me. I'm almost certain that day 4 was cut last minute. Jill actually made a message to somebody saying that they weren't ready to release competitive. They didn't feel it was in a good state to sort of revitalize it, which makes me believe that it was near completion, or at least they intended to release it with this update, but they just couldn't last minute. And this would also explain why day 4 came out fairly late in the day that it came out on. I don't remember the exact time, but I believe it was more towards like 9 o'clock where I am. Regardless of that, it seems like this was very rushed. If you look at the source filmmaker right at the bottom, it's very low quality for Valve work. It seems like someone just hit render. It seems like ambient occlusion is also still on, which is something Valve usually doesn't do for their posters. Basically, it was sort of a rushed final day, and ultimately, that just summarizes my disappointment with the update. On its own, it was a very good update. First 3 days, each individually fine. I did not wait this long for this amount of content. This is the amount of content I would have expected from an average summer update after a 4 or 5 month wait after Christmas, not a full year. But I'm very conflicted because they push back competitive because they want it to be good. I respect that, and I appreciate that they don't want to mess it up again. But at the same time, dude, listen, I've been waiting at least 3.5 years for this. If it takes that long to release it, what's to say the next update after that isn't going to take an additional year, you know? It's not just about having it now. It's about the long term. If this is how long it takes for them to get anything done, then it's going to be the whole life of the game. Just waiting. That's been the whole life of the game. That should be a red flag right there. Now, with my little jungle Inferno rant out of the way, I want to talk about the bright side of this update, because I'm trying this new thing where I'm not a complete dick. First on the list, Claymore got reverted. I don't know why they changed it in the first place. I hope whoever did that got fired. I hope they got fired and forced to watch it get reverted. Also, we finally got to see the Saxton Hale model. I know that's sort of a nerdy thing, but it always warms my heart when there's sort of like a big step in the TF2 lore, especially when like seeing a new character in a source filmmaker. Additionally, party fixes. Finally, now you can just jump into a matchmaking system, jump into the party, and queue, and it's just so relieving. Finally, what I think is probably the biggest bright side of this update is that Valve is taking steps to fix the generalist balance of the game. If you remember, when I talked about the DDS and the GRU gloves, they really affect how classes are played because they mess completely with the weaknesses of those classes. The sniper can no longer put on a DDS and pretty much, win games until the other sniper comes up with a DDS. Heavy can now no longer roll out with GRU gloves to mid as fast as like a scout. Technically, the disciplinary action still exists, so you still can, but at least it's just a step in the right direction. Also, the Vita Saw was changed, so it's no longer just free Uber charge when you die. It's risk for reward. That said, I think it is still very, very risky compared to like a normal Uber saw, but I suppose that no matter what, as long as you're risking something, it's fine. And I'm very interested to see how Valve is going to deal with balance in the future. A lot of the new Pyro weapons, interestingly, do affect his generalist-specialist balance. In my specialist video, and I know I keep referencing old videos I've made, but it's just to prove a point, I talked about how if you made the Pyro do more burst damage and move faster, he would be intruding on the role that a scout was made for, and that's pretty much exactly what the new Pyro items are for. Burst damage with his new primary, and moving faster with the hot hand and the jetpack. Since the making of that video, I've heard a lot of opinions on how it should be balanced, and while I still believe that class balance should be based around generalist and specialist, I think as long as Valve maintains weaknesses as well as strength in their rebalances, they can potentially turn classes into generalists without fucking up the balance. So you can make Pyro a scout type class as long as he's not messing with how the game is played. It's just sort of viable, essentially. But at the end of the day, this Jungle Inferno update is just fluff to me. It's not that I hate the content, it's just that I've played a lot of TF2 in my day. I've done a lot of pubbing, so at this point, I'm waiting for something else. It wasn't in this update. Fingers crossed for Smithsmith, I guess. Now it's time to talk about Weezer's new album, Pacific Daydream. Before anything is said, let me clarify this opinion. I feel that Weezer has earned this album. It's been 20 years, guys. How many bands have released good albums 10 years after their debut? 5 years, even. Weezer came out with Everything Will Be Alright, the White Album, and they even had a lot of solid singles everywhere in between. I'm okay with Weezer making a hip-hop album, with that experimental album, but at least make it, like, real experimental, okay? Just because I'm okay with them earning this album doesn't mean I have to like it. That said, optimistic, let's start from what I like and slowly get into what I dislike about the album. First things first, favorite tracks: Beach Boys, Happy Hour, and Weekend Women, in no particular order, except maybe Weekend Women at the top. Honorable mention goes to QB Blitz. I know I might get a little bit of shit from you guys from that, but I feel like the track is a little overrated. Let's be honest, everything other than the breakdown feels like a good song bottlenecked by the way Rivers does his formulaic writing. The lyrics are choppy and don't really make a concise story. That's a good segue into what I feel are the shortfalls of the album. Things that had a good concept or could have done well, but just didn't quite. The first one being, quite obviously, it just tastes like generic hip-hop. If you're gonna do hip-hop, at least break the mold a little bit. I could listen to any other hip-hop artist and get 90% of these songs. Next shortfall of the album, I feel, the lyrics overall throughout the album are just so empty and formulaic. So here are some of my least favorite lines. Take drugs and learn to love. Feels like Rivers is just filling out syllable count with that. As I look you in the eyes. It's like Rivers is writing the first thing that comes to his head. My Summer Love. This one may sound weird, but I think Mexican Fender is a good song that is bottlenecked by the fact that it has just sort of a really weak chorus, because instead of having this huge bombastic thing, it just falls into my summer love, like whatever. I've heard 1,000 songs about loving somebody in the summer. You had an entire album about that last time you made one, okay? Honorable mention for least favorite line, all of Any Friend of Diane. What is with the lisp? Rivers Cuomo, you don't have a lisp, dude. Why are you trying to like fake one for the song? It makes it really odd. I don't know if he's trying to play a character or he just felt like it sounded better. Any Friend of Diane is already a very empty song lyrically, so for it to be sung so oddly, it's just odd. Speaking of songs, song topics, there's so much reliance on That Feel with No GF. Blue Album had Undone, Surf Wax America, Say It Ain't So, In the Garage, and personally you could even count Holiday because that song doesn't have to be about a girl, it can just be about going on a holiday. So that's like 5 songs on a 10-song album that aren't about just That Feel with No GF. This album is 90% that, minus the Beach Boys. Imagine the song Sweet Mary if it had any other topic. I would actually be tempted to remember something of the song. Same with Get Right and Any Friend of Diane. If you change the lyrical structure of those songs, I feel like they'd be a lot more memorable. I've heard a lot of songs about that feel when you can't quite get the girl. Okay, Rivers, I know that that's like the whole Weezer gimmick, so it's kind of weird to complain about that, but it all boils back to if you're gonna experiment, then actually experiment, man. But here's a big part of that quote-unquote experimenting. Butch Walker, the producer of this, fun fact, he also produced RADITUDE. I think Butch Walker is a talented producer, but when him and Rivers Cuomo get into a room together, they struggle to make anything that isn't novelty pop. You know the crap, where it sounds like it's trying to imitate Top 40, whatever they can hit. If you've heard interviews about Rivers Cuomo, you know he's obsessed with Call Me Maybe. And it shows on this, because he could not come up with anything himself. Okay, that's a little harsh, but the formulaic way that he created songs fell a little flat this time. From what I know, it happened, he did the same kind of structure on White with a little more user input, and with Jake Sinclair producing that, him being a huge Weezer fan, there was very little chance it would get too experimental, but Butch Walker is very open to trying to get that autotune and those changes to make Rivers Cuomo into a pop star. And I gotta say, it didn't happen. From what I know, Pacific Daydream has been performing worse than Pinkerton did when it came out, and if you don't know, Pinkerton flopped hella bad when it first came out. So for it to be worse than that, that's pretty, as a commercial failure. I think its reception is probably better than Pinkerton was, but in terms of success and being sold and getting radio play, I think it's fallen pretty short. And this leads me into the Black Album. From what Rivers said, according to a Beats One radio interview, it's pretty much ready. It'll also allegedly be way more twisted and experimental than Pacific Daydream. Now hear me out. I'm looking forward to this. I'm not excited. I'm not let down. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. I want Weezer to experiment in a full measure, not a half measure. Pacific Daydream is a half measure. It didn't quite go all the way to experimental. If you're gonna do it, then in the wise words of Frank Reynolds,
I don't know how many years on this earth I got left. I'm gonna get real weird with it.
That's my advice for Weezer. That's my hopes for Rivers Cuomo. Truthfully, I'd prefer if he released the pop under his own name, or even like a new band, but it's Weezer, and I think even him and the band members know that their claim, I don't want to say claim to fame because that's kind of devaluing them, but their arm stretching into the mainstream is Weezer, and that's kind of their best bet on getting it seen and getting big, so I wouldn't go expecting this to stop anytime soon. But until the Black Album comes out, here are some other albums I'm looking forward to in the next year or whenever they come out. 1. Another Light by Red Vox, the band of Vinny Vinesauce. I really liked In the Garden and From the Stars. I think Vinny's taste in music overlaps a lot with mine. It has a lot of 80s rock and even a bit of 90s there, here and there. You can also check out the previous stuff. I really recommend In the Garden and From the Stars, guys. They're really good singles. Another one, number 2, The Rentals' new album. There's no name or date as far as I'm aware of, but there was a single called Elon Musk is Making Me Sad, and it's good. It came out while the Pacific Daydream singles were coming out, and they weren't doing so well for me. So when I heard something from The Rentals, it was a breath of fresh air, and it's actually a good song. Rentals is always good at being timeless. If you hear a Rentals song, you know it's a Rentals song. If you don't know what The Rentals is, because I keep saying it, it's the band of Matt Sharp, previous bassist for Weezer back during their first 2 albums. And finally, I don't know if this one is actually ever going to come out, Ozma Double Donkey Disc release. They said in September on Facebook that there was going to be a digital release this year, but it's December and it hasn't come out, so fingers crossed. I'm hoping that it comes out. I'm also really hoping that a new Ozma album drops this year. It's been about 3 or 4 since their last one. Ozma is so fucking good, dude. It's like Weezer if they were consistent. Sorry, Weezer, but Ozma is almost officially my favorite band. I'm holding off on saying completely because I don't really like to label myself with favorites, but Ozma's fucking up there, dude. It would give Weezer an easy run for their money. That's the extent of my opinion, guys. Both Weezer and TF2 are things that, despite all their flaws, I still love and I still come back to, but it's not enough to make me really feel invested into these two things. And for them to drop within like the same week of time, it was just such a back-to-back blow for me that I needed a month to record this. So hopefully I've articulated myself well. Leave a comment with your opinions on the update and the album. These are just my opinions, and I'm happy to read with an open mind. Also, feel free to throw out suggestions for the next episode, whether you want me to talk about something new or just ask me a question. Shoot away, guys.